Hello. Um, I'll be talking to you about the Paladin class with some useful information from character creation, subclasses, and level up choices. Just the overall gameplay for this class. So Paladins are more of your tanky class. They can take a lot of damage and deal a lot of damage. Their primary attribute is strength, but their spellcasting ability is charisma, and they gain proficiency in wisdom and charisma saving throws. They also have a d10 hit dice and can use all simple weapons, martial weapons, armor, and shields. They're like think of them as like a holy fighter in a way. Um, from a race perspective, you can't go wrong with a half work, just because of the amount of extra damage and benefits they get from, if they go to 0 HP, they can come back. The extra dice damage when they crit. Elves and Dragonborn, I feel, are good choices too, just due to some of the racial abilities that you can get. A Zariel Tiefling could also be a viable choice, just because they gain 2 actions that basically act as smites. So you get 2 free smites as that, because smiting is really like the big thing about being a paladin. Like, you have your damages, you can do all these cool things, but in addition, you can use a smite. I only have divine smite at this level, but you can see the amount of damage that this thing is doing. Basically what it does is it uses a spell slot, a level 1 spell slot in my case, to do 2d8 radiant damage on top of the 2d6 that my sword does. At higher levels, higher spells used, it'll do more damage, and also it does an extra d8 against undead. So as you start leveling this thing up, you get access to level 3 spells, which are the highest that a paladin can get. You could eventually have 48 radiant damage added to your attack, and it just works like a regular attack. It spends one of your slots to do so. At level 1,
all's well that ends. Not as bad as it could have.
Or you gain, I should say. Let's see here. You gain lay on hands, which lets you deal basically 4 times your monk level in healing. So I'm a level 4 monk in this case, or level 4 paladin in this case. So it's 4 times 4 is 16. So I get 16 HP as a pool I can use. You only have a few number of these charges per day. I believe I have 4 lay on hand charges that I can use. I know this based off of this information up here. You also gain Divine Sense at level 1, which lets you gain advantage on attacks against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead as a bonus action. It lasts for 2 turns. You get access to your Channel Oaths, which you get 1 charge, which tie into your Paladin abilities, which I'll go over here once I get into those kind of abilities. I'm starting here as this because as a paladin, I instantly became what's called an Oathbreaker paladin because I picked the wrong paladin subclass, which I'll talk about here in a minute, different oaths. And what happens is, at the start, you only have access to the 3 oaths that are currently in the game, which are Oath of Ancients, Oath of Devotion, and Oath of Vengeance. In order to become an Oathbreaker, though, which is the 4th option that I became here, what's up with this? Oh, and then you get all these different smites, which I'll talk about later. In order to become an Oathbreaker Paladin, you have to break the tenets that come with your oath. So in my case, I was supposed to defend the innocent. I didn't, because in this gameplay, the group of friends I'm playing with, we all decided to be what's called murder hobos, which is basically just killing everything that moves. That's how they wanted to play it. That's how we played it. It can be fun, but it also can screw you over in the game too. So in order to become a to drop being an Oathbreaker, which there's nothing wrong with being an Oathbreaker Paladin. They are probably some of the more powerful sub-options up there with, like, Oath of Vengeance, for example. But if I wanted to no longer break my oath, I wanted to follow the light and be on the path. There's this guy, Oathbreaker Knight, that is in your camp, and you can talk to him.
Oathbreaker, what do you need of me?
You can talk to him and give him some money to basically say, I want to take back my oath.
It is possible. First, you must pay the agreed price. Material sacrifice is required to prove your words have substance. Do you wish to pay?
I will say it is quite a lot of money. It's 1,000 gold. So if you become an Oathbreaker Paladin, it's kind of you're committed, I would say, because 1,000 gold can be used in better ways than what I'm about to use it on, which is letting me reclaim my oath.
The price is paid. Tell me, why do you wish to reclaim your oath?
I want to regain
A
my
higher
powers.
purpose. Kneel. You swear to deliver righteous retribution, vanquishing your enemies and aiding those who suffer at their hands. The oath of vengeance is once more yours to fulfill.
So because I have my oath back, if you're an Oathbreaker Paladin, Withers will not let you change your class. That's not a way to get out of everything. So right now I'm accepting, like, yep, I want to be this. I'm going to redo it here in a minute so I can go through the different subclasses, but I wanted to at least show you guys how you can become an Oathbreaker Paladin and how you can revert it for a pretty hefty fee, but you can still revert it. So I can talk to Withers here.
Fate, spit.
Dost thou
Withers-
require a new ally?
Withers is someone that you get
Or
during the game
mayhaps
that
a
will allow you to
resurrection
pay him some
instead.
gold so you can change your class, and there's other things you can change as well, like reviving players, I think, for like 200 gold.
As
So I'm going to
thou
change my
desire.
class. I'm going to change my class to Paladin. Great change. I'm going from a Paladin to a Paladin, I know. But it's a really easy way to kind of go through this stuff. So as a level 1 Paladin, like I had mentioned, I gain access to Lay on Hands, which is 4 times my Paladin level is healing. And then I also get Divine Sense, which lets me get advantage on attack rolls against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead. And I get an Oath Charge. I've already talked about race and a couple other things, so from an abilities perspective, I recommend high strength and getting high charisma. The reason for this is because charisma is used for a lot of different... Basically, just you have high charisma because what ends up happening is as you level up, you gain these abilities that let you add your charisma modifier to things like your spell saves. Like all your spell saves go up by your charisma modifier, and in turn, your allies, if they're close enough, they also gain those benefits of your charisma to their spell saves DCs. So that's a really helpful thing. Also, charisma is your spell casting modifier and for your dice or your DC for spells, so having a high charisma is always a good thing. Also, high constitution is also highly recommended in my opinion because you are going to be a frontline kind of fighter. So if I were to do this, I would say I want like 16 here, 15, get myself how high I can get. And then I don't have much for dexterity. That's all well and good because I can get heavy armor. Off the bat, I'm not going to have very high AC. I might want to wield a shield with this for a little bit. If my goal is to eventually try and get access to heavy armor, like plate mail, which would make my AC an 18. It's just for a while my armor's going to suck. You could also drop this down to like 14 and round off a couple things, or at least round off your wisdom or intelligence, and get some bonuses to your dex, or you could leave them low and get your modifier bonus to your dex here. Again, you can also push the goblin area to get the intellect band, so your intellect is higher. So then, like, it doesn't really matter what your intellect is here. Like, you could just do whatever. It's not one of the best. It's not the best headset in the game, but it's up there. But like I had mentioned, high strength and high charisma just by being a paladin. As a paladin, you're going to have that high charisma, so I usually end up with high intimidation, persuasion, athletics, those kind of skills. At level 1, you also get to gain your subclass, and like I had mentioned, the three are Ancients, Devotion, and Vengeance. Ancients is more, think of it, at the end of the day, you get healing, and it's kind of nature-y in a way. It does a decent amount of damage. Devotion, you gain a good amount of healing spells in a way. You can't be charmed at certain levels. It has some decent healing aspects. Vengeance is more of your high damage dealing subclass, so you're going to gain like advantage on attacks against enemies, skills or spells that do additional damage, be able to move faster and cast things like haste on yourself so that you can get an extra attack every turn, get an extra action every turn. So there's a lot of different benefits to things, but I'm going to start with Oath of Ancients, which at level 1 you gain another healing ability called Healing Radiance, which lets you heal you or your allies equal to HP of your proficiency modifier plus your charisma modifier plus your paladin level. So because I have a proficiency of 2 and I have a charisma modifier of 2, that gives me 4, and I'm a level 1 paladin at this point, so that's why it's 5. The Oath of Ancients tenets, these are the things that you, as you play the game, you need to fulfill and stick to if you're going to play the paladin. So kindle the light, acts of kindness, basically be kind to people. Don't do dickish things. And just do what you can to just, basically not be a dick. At level 3, you gain Nature's Wrath, which lets you restrain an enemy so that they can't move, and this uses one of your channel oath charges. You also get Turn the Faithless, which forces nearby Fae or Fiends to flee from you, and this also uses your channel oath charge. You also gain Speak with Animals, so that you can speak with animals for until the end of your next long rest. And you also gain a what's called Ensnaring Strike, which lets you attack an enemy and possibly restrain them. They have to make a strength save, and this requires concentration. At level 5, as part of all of these subclasses, you gain more spells. And in our case of an Ancient, you gain Misty Step, which lets you teleport 18 meters away. And then Moonbeam, which lets you call forth a beam of light to deal 2d10 radiant damage, and as a bonus action you can move it around the battlefield. Level 7 is when you get access to your auras for your subclass, and as an actual paladin you get another aura, which I'll talk about later. But as an Oath of Ancients paladin at level 7, you gain Aura of Warding, which allows you and your allies to take half damage from spells, as long as they're within 3 meters of you. At level 9, you gain Protection from Energy, which is a spell to gain resistance, which is half damage, from acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. You also gain, it's called Plant Growth, which is a spell that that quarters movement speed for anybody in it for about a 6 meter radius. Oath of Devotion, at level 1, we gain Holy Rebuke, which lets us deal 1d8 radiant damage for 2 turns. this causes us to use one of our oath charges. The tenets of a devotion paladin are courage, so not running away from things, being compassionate, and a sense of duty. So again, another being understanding and compassionate to insert scenario here. And then you also want to obey the laws and support people. At level 3, as this type of paladin, you gain a sacred weapon, which lets you turn your weapon into a sacred weapon that has a higher chance of hitting and emits a bright light. And this uses one of your oath charges. You also get Turn the Unholy, which makes nearby Fae and Fiends flee from you, very similar to what we had for Turn the Faithless. It's just a different wording, but the same thing. You get protection from evil and good, which means you can't be charmed, frightened, or possessed from aberrations, celestials, elementals, Fae, Fiends, and undead when they attack you. They also have disadvantage at that point, and this takes a long rest in order for you to regain that ability. You gain the effect from the spell Sanctuary, which lets you protect yourself from being targeted by attacks or spells until you attack or harm something. At level 5, we gain a spell called Lesser Restoration, which lets us cure one disease, poison, paralyzing, or blindness effect. And you also gain the spell Silence, which lets you silence any sound in an 18-meter area, and any creatures inside it are immune to thunder damage, but that requires also concentration. At level 7, we gain Aura of Devotion, which basically means you and your nearby allies can't be charmed. At level 9, you gain the spell Beacon of Hope, which allows your allies to regain the max HP possible for them, and they gain advantage on wisdom saving throws and death saves. This requires concentration. You also gain Remove Curse, which lets you remove all curses and hexes from a target or an object. So think of Devotion as you gain some health benefits, you get a little bit of damage benefits in here as well, but you're kind of like a battle cleric in a way. Oath of Vengeance, you gain what's called Inquisitor's Might, which lets you or an ally's weapon deal an additional 2 radiant damage, and you cause the Daze effect on them, which lasts for 2 turns. Sorry, my brain froze. The Oath Tenets of a Vengeance Paladin is basically fighting the greater evils, basically just, killing everything that moves. No mercy for the wicked So if you come across like a fishy person doing something, that they shouldn't be, it's your duty to basically wipe them from the world. At level 3, you gain Abjure Enemy, which lets you frighten an enemy so that they cannot move and makes them easier to hit. Fiends and Undead have disadvantage on this saving throw. Vow of Enmity lets you gain advantage on attack rolls against an enemy. You also gain the spell Bane, which lets you cast this up to 3 creatures and cast it on up to 3 creatures, and they receive a minus D4 to attack rolls and saving throws. This will require concentration. You also gain Hunter's Mark, which deals an additional D6 of damage to a target. It does require concentration and can be used once per long rest. At level 5, we gain Hold Person, which lets us hold a humanoid in place. They can't move, act, react. And then we gain Misty Step, which again lets us teleport 18 meters away as a bonus action. At level 7, rather than gaining an aura, you gain what's called Relentless Avenger, which is when you hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, your movement speed increases by about 5 meters for the next turn. At level 9, you can cast the spell Haste, which is on yourself or an ally, which lets them gain an action for 10 turns. This does require concentration. It is a nice thing if you are if you have high concentration to or con to have a higher con save for things to keep your concentration, and you have a barbarian in your party, for example, you can cast haste to give them another attack, is pretty much what they'll probably use it for. So it's a very helpful way to kind of give extra actions to people. Protection from energy is a spell to let you gain resistance or half damage to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. I can't show it here. I'd have to kind of break my oath or reload to save, but is a Oathbreaker Paladin. Like I mentioned, it's basically you broke your oaths of one of these three. And at level 1, you gain what's called Spiteful Suffering, which lets you deal additional d4 of necrotic damage to a target for 3 turns. And attacks have advantage against this thing, and it uses one of your oath charges. At level 3, you gain Control Undead, which is a ability to control an undead creature, and you can use this once per long rest, and the creature needs to be lower than your current level. Like character level, not paladin level. So if you multi-class and do another class and your character level is a level 4, that's the level it's going to use for determining that. Dreadful Aspect lets you frighten an enemy for 2 turns. It requires a wisdom save, but it also uses one of your oath charges. Hellish Rebuke is something you can use as I believe it's a reaction, and you deal 2d10 fire damage to a target, and this will require a dex save from them, but as a reaction you're able to just be like, hey, take some fire damage, stop trying to hit me. You also gain Inflict Wounds, which lets you deal 3d10 necrotic damage. It's a spell. At level 5, you gain Crown of Madness, which you can make an enemy attack the nearest creature, even if it's allied, for 3 turns. This will require concentration and a wisdom save. So like a use for this is, let's say you have a goblin boss and you hit him with this, and you succeed and you keep your concentration, they're going to attack people next to them, and basically you can get some free attacks out of things. So like after you've cast it, your second attack, you can go through and attack other things. As long as you keep concentration, you're good. Darkness lets you blind creatures within an area, and this also requires concentration. So I've said it a lot, I think, in this video and other videos recently of what concentration is. And what concentration, I keep referring to as, oh, you got to make a concentration, it requires this. What concentration is you get hit by damage when you're concentrating on a spell. You have to make a Constitution saving throw, and the DC you have to beat is 10 plus the level of the it's 10 plus your dex save, and then what you have to beat the DC is basically 10 or the damage, whichever's higher. So if you got hit for 15 damage, the DC is now 15 in order for you to keep concentration. At level 7, you gain what's called Aura of Hate, which lets you and your allies within 3 meters gain additional damage, which is your charisma modifier. So if you have a 20 charisma, that means that modifier will be a +5. At level 9, you get Bestow Curse, which you can grant a curse to an enemy, causing them to have disadvantage on checks, saving throws, and attacks, and you deal more damage to them. You also get probably one of my more favorite spells, which is Animate Dead, especially if you're playing like a Necromancer concept. But you create a servant from an undead corpse, and that target must be a medium or small creature. So let's say you kill a goblin, you could use this ability to animate them, and now you have an animated goblin corpse following you around doing goblin-y things. I'm going to pick Oath of Vengeance for right now. At level 2 is a Paladin. At level 2, we gain one of our class features, which lets us cast level 1 spells. But we also gain access to a bunch of our smites. So we have a You have Divine Smite, which is when you do an attack action. It'll do an additional 2d8 radiant damage at the cost of a level 1 spell slot. Reaction weapon damage, so like when you have a reaction, you can smite. And when you crit, you can smite. This is pretty much the equivalent of what this is saying. So whenever you make an attack, be it a regular attack, opportunity attack, as a reaction, or whatever reaction attack you're doing, or a critical hit, you're going to get that D8 option as long as you spend a spell slot. Excuse me. You gain access to a couple different spells. You get 4 prepared spells to start. My charisma spell save is 12 because I have a +2 to my charisma. My spell attack is my proficiency bonus plus that, so that's why it's a +4. But as far as prepared spells, off the bat, it gives you Command, Compelling Duel, Cure Wounds, and Wrathful Smite. I usually get rid of Command because I feel it's just kind of useless. That's just me. There's Thunderous Smite, which does decent amount of damage, 2d6, and it knocks them prone. Cure Wounds, you already have the ability to heal things, so I usually get rid of that, and Compelling Duel. And I trade it in for Bless, and then Shield of Faith. That's just me. That's just my personal preference when playing a Paladin, because what's nice with the shield is it lets you get that bonus to your AC. Also at level 2, you gain access to a fighting style. And actually, let me go back here for the smites. So the smites, like I mentioned, they go up by a d8 every time you use a different spell slot. So if you are a different level spell slot. So a level 2 spell slot would give you 2d8. A level 3 would give you an additional 3d8. You can do a lot more damage with more spell slots that you're using. And quite honestly, like to me, like when I've been playing it, yes, there are decent spells at that level, but if your goal is to just smite all the things, you're not going to use your spell slots for spells. You're going to use them to frickin' do, 4d8 or 5d8 damage on top of everything else that you're going to be doing damage-wise. Like, you're just going to use it to wail on things. I mean, just let's be real here. Like, if you want to deal some damage, smiting is the way. You get access to 4 different fighting style choices at level 2. I've gone over these before, but I'll go over them again here. Where defense gives you a +1 to your bonus. Dueling, as long as you're wielding a one-handed weapon without a shield, or not without a shield, but one-handed weapon, sorry. So you're not using dual wielding or a two-handed weapon, you get a +2 to your weapon damage. So you could have a shield and a mace and be good to go. Great weapon fighting, if you're using a two-handed weapon and you roll a 1 or a 2, it re-rolls the dice and takes the higher value. You also could pick protection, which if you get a shield, you can give disadvantage to enemies that are within range of you if you have an ally that's close by. At level 3, we gain some of our oath spells. So like I had mentioned, because of a devotion, I gained Bane and Hunter's Mark. But also I gain my Abjure Enemy and my Vow of Enmity that I was talking about here because of the subclass I picked. So this is when I start getting some of my subclasses bonuses. But you gain this ability as well called Divine Health, which prevents diseases from affecting you. And you also gain access to level 1 spells at level 3. At level 4, we gain so there's really not much here. I mean, in between your leveling, you can change your spells. So I now have 5 spells that I can choose from. It gave me back command. I don't want that. So I'll take maybe Shearing Smite. At level 4, we gain feat or attribute bonus, but we also gain another Lay on Hands charge. At level 5, we gain level 2 spellcasting ability, so we can cast level 2 spells, and we gain an extra attack, which lets us make 2 attacks per attack action. At level 6, we gain Aura of Protection, which lets you add your Charisma modifier to you and your allies' spells DCs, or DCs, spell saves, if they're within 3 meters of you. So let's say a beholder is going to hit you with something. You have to make an intelligence save. Your teammate's intelligence save is currently at +2, but since they're close to you and you have a 5 bonus for charisma, they get to add 5 to their save, making it a 6, potentially saving them from getting fried. So an army of paladins, the effect doesn't stack. Like if you had 2 people, they're not going to gain both bonuses, I believe. I may be wrong. I haven't tried it yet, but it would be a very interesting concept to have 2 paladins in your party and have them standing side by side to people and see if they give each other their bonuses. I doubt that it stacks, because if it's stacked, that's OP. You could have 4 paladins that have 5 charisma, so everyone's getting a +5. You get a +5 to your spell saves, which if they're close enough, that means that they're getting like +20 to their spell save. That seems broken, and I don't think it stacks. It doesn't stack in D&D, but also this game isn't a complete mirror of D&D. They've taken liberties of things, which is fine. I'm not dissing that. There's some things in D&D that just don't translate well to a digital gaming world. That's just me. That's just my 2 cents on that. But at level 6, that's the Aura Protection that you gain to be able to add your Charisma modifier to your spell DC, or spell saves. At level 8, you gain another feat or attribute increase. At level 9, we gain access to level 3 spells. At level 10, we gain another Lay on Hands charge and another aura called Aura of Courage, which allows you and your allies to not be frightened if they're within 3 meters of you. At level 11, you gain Improved Divine Smite, which deals an additional D8 of damage to your Divine Smites. And then at level 12, we gain another feat or attribute bonus, and we start getting, we get extra level 3 spells. So, as a level 12 paladin, you're going to have access to 10 spell slots overall, and those are split out between level 1, 2s, and 3s. If you want more spell slots to smite with, I always recommend, multi-classing into a sorcerer or warlock. The reason I say that is because their primary attributes are usually charisma, and I'll have a sorcerer and warlock video coming up soon, and I'll mention the same thing of multi-classing a sorcerer into paladin for multiple different reasons. But if you start as a paladin and go into a sorcerer, as a sorcerer, they have the ability to create spell slots. And also you can use your sorcerer spell slots as smites. So if you had a couple levels in sorcerer, you gain more spell slots, so that gives you more ability to smite. You would get these back on a long rest, and like I said, you get sorcerer points to create spell slots. So you could be a sorcerer and not give a dang about anything else with it, just the fact that you're able to create spell slots. Where warlocks come into this is they also get spell slots along with things as they level up. The benefits to them is that they regain their spell slots after a short rest. You don't get many of them. You only get like maybe 3 or 4, let's say. I don't remember the exact number. We'll find out more when I get to that video. But if you were a paladin mixed in with a warlock and you took a short rest, you would instantly gain, let's say, 2 extra spell slots to use for smiting. So if your whole goal is just smite all the things, I'd recommend those 2 classes as a multi-class ability. I'm going to just increase my con and so that's Paladins really much in a nutshell. I have that ability to where I can do a boatload of damage with my smites, which Speaking of which, can I target my friends? I can.
You've made a grave mistake.
I just did like 20 damage to my ally, which probably should have. They'll be fine. They're fine. See? They're fine. They're perfectly fine. Searing Smite does a very similar thing. I just do fire damage instead. I hit the guy. Probably shouldn't hit him because I think he's pretty good armor class and defenses on things. So I'm gonna smash on the wizard again here in a minute. Thunderous Smite, I can do thunder damage. Not as much, but good enough. Pick you back up. So there's just a lot of different cool things you can do from just a damage perspective. Like I feel like I'm a damage powerhouse at level 4. I have 40 HP. I have an armor class of probably like 17 by now. Oh, 16. But if I had a shield or something, I'd be able to do a little bit better. But anyway, I'm not gonna waste your time watching me, cast different spells and beat the crap out of my AFK teammates here. With shield, let's say I was in battle, I can cast it on myself. It requires concentration, which is always fun, but because of this, now my armor class is 18? That's not right. Oh, it's by 2. Huh, I thought it increased by 5. My bad. They must have changed it. Anyway, that's pretty much all these fun things I mentioned. So as always, if there's anything I missed or you'd like to add from your own experiences for playing this class, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And as always, enjoy the game out there. It's a lot of fun.